Hey guys, Brockshield here. This time, back in Western Plaguelands, where you see me start to round up quite a few of the different mobs in order to level Daenerys up even further. As you may have seen from my last Blackrock Depths video, I've been making a concentrated effort to get Daenerys to level 60, so that I can try all manner of different cool things, multi-boxing with two alts that are both very versatile in their roles. These AoE style pulls in Western Plaguelands are quite enjoyable because these undead mobs are non-elites, and as a result they can be rounded up and AoE'd down quite simply. One thing I think is really cool about the AI that Blizzard wrote here is that these Scarlet mobs, they all work together in a pack, picking off all the undeads one at a time. It's often cool to see them roam around and start their own battles while all the human players move on around them. These AoE pulls I find are also quite simple by virtue of the fact that these mobs that I choose in this particular area don't actually have any ranged ability. I believe in Dhalsim's Tears. The worst they do is fear and cast these disease spells on you, but as you can see, as a paladin you can instantly dispel them. As you see, they keep trying to fear Daenerys, but he's not afraid. As of right now, I believe Daenerys is either level 56 or 57, so I imagine with the amount of time it takes, that's probably approximately, let's overestimate and say 20 more hours of leveling him to reach level 60. At that point, I'll be running him through Molten Core in order to get him his full tier 8, his tier 8 out of 8 tier 1, excuse me. That should be a good start for him to be either a primary healer, or like I mentioned in my previous video, when I return him to Blackrock Depths, he might have to tank Princess while I work on Emperor. Either way, it will be very cool to see what all can be done with two level 60s, especially because Brockshield can do so much by himself. I'll be really curious to see what he can do with the decked out level 60 Druid. Other than Ironfoe, farming for Ironfoe to test a reckoning spec, I'll definitely be interested in trying some of the pulls in Stratholme as well. One of the comments, I'm forgetting the viewer who wrote this down, thank you for your time, mentioned that I could do some of the loot box runs in Stratholme, because that really doesn't seem like too far into the dungeon, so I could rinse and repeat those to see if I could get Righteous Orbs, etc. Pretty much all of the undead level mobs would be pretty good for Brockshield because I could use Holy Wrath, Exorcism, etc. in order to pull from range and make sure that I can do extra damage to the mobs. I'd probably have a more difficult time farming for Ironfoe than I would going for the loot boxes, for not just the time but also the fact that Princess heals, whereas none of the undead mobs ever heal pretty much. The nice part about Classic WoW is there is a good diversity in the amount of dungeons you can run. I guess also in the style in which you choose to run them. One thing I'm also hoping is to see if I can just do some bigger style AoE pulls in set dungeons with a group of people to see how large of pulls we can do. A player that I met recently that you'll see in one of my future videos where we get the Shadowforge key, You Got Me, has become a good friend of mine, and it's nice to see that we could do things like run dungeons together, farm mobs together, and just have fun without really thinking too much about being goal oriented or how far can we push XYZ character. Another reason why I've enjoyed just farming these mobs aimlessly, the non-elites here, because unlike Blackrock Depths where you saw last video, where Daenerys can die, where I can die, these full wipes happen, it's pretty rare to see non-elite mobs bring down a full tier 2 paladin with another player. One thing I like about Classic WoW is once you get in the rhythm of playing it, it is sort of that same enjoyment again and again. I don't really get tired of rounding up the mobs in SMCath and bringing them down. It's kind of strange. It's like even though I've done this what feels like 1,000 times, and maybe I have, I still enjoy that sweet Shift Q, Shift E, Shift Q, Shift C, that same methodical consecrate, bubble, heal, consecrate pattern that yields all these beautiful numbers and hurricane and rejuvenation and divine favor. There's something so magical about this game that just for me, I was never able to recapture when I went back to retail. It's a good moment, I guess, to transition to some of my experiences playing retail since Wrath of the Lich King. So for me, my history with World of Warcraft is as such. When I was a freshman in high school, I would have been 13 years old. I started playing Burning Crusade in 2007, so maybe I would have been 14 at this point. I played a human priest up until level 40 something in Tenaris, at which point some of my friends on the Horde side told me that, you could come level with us, and so I chose to level a Blood Elf Paladin. I remember that I never actually played with them because I think I chose a different server or something, but I ended up leveling a Blood Elf Paladin to 70, even though I was pretty terrible at the game, in the sense that I wasn't, I didn't have any keybinds or anything, didn't really know how to play. I was playing on a terrible laptop. It was fun, something fun about going in Zulaman and Karazhan, and I made it up to Serpent Shrine Cavern and Tempest Keep, but no further, so I never saw tier 6. And it was just fun to try my best healing and see what gear I could get, and I'll complete all the quests for keys and watch WoW Hobs and see everything he could do and try and emulate it, but I was terrible and young and I didn't know how to do any of that stuff yet. So that's where I was in Burning Crusade. After that, I played a Warlock in Wrath of the Lich King, where I was able to finally raid with some of my friends from high school at that time. I remember one such LAN party where we went over to my friend's place and we were all raiding together, and my friend teased me because he was just like, yeah, your laptop is so bad, I wonder how much DPS you would do with a good PC or something, because you're not half bad with this terrible laptop. After that, I stopped playing. I reactivated my subscription during Cataclysm for maybe like a week. I didn't like it, so I left then. After that, I came back from Mists of Pandaria, where I re-leveled a Tauren Paladin this time. I still have that Paladin, and you would already have seen his thumbnail in one of my previous videos. He's the one decked out in the full tier 6 transmog with Light's Justice, Skullflame Shield, and that Mist of Pandaria Thunder Lightning Belt. It was on him my Paladin named Caesar spelled incorrectly, so Caesar, that I achieved Lore Master and tried a lot of different things that I thought were fun. But I could just never really recapture any of that interest in Mists of Pandaria. And then I came back in Warlords of Draenor as well, and same problem. Didn't really enjoy the garrison system. Though in Mists of Pandaria at least I was able to make some good friends playing on a server I think that started with the letter Z. It was quite enjoyable at least to have a sort of consistent feeling of being around the same people then. After Warlords of Draenor, I never really played too seriously other than once Classic was announced. Finally came back and played for a little bit right before Classic launched, and didn't really enjoy it then either. There's just something for me about, I don't know if it's nostalgia or the simplicity for me particularly, of how each class here has a designated role, versus in retail where when anyone can be anything, what distinguishes each person from anyone else. And that's a perspective that's for each person to determine. But having a 60 warrior, a 60 paladin, hopefully soon a 60 druid, it is cool to me that, okay, that warrior had no gear whatsoever and was still outputting more DPS than, some of the top misspec'd classes, for example. And my paladin, with Sulfuros Hand of Ragnaros full tier 2, really, unless I farm consumables worth, a few hundred gold a week, isn't viable in a top tier raid, period, as a ret paladin. So my paladin should heal in these raids, and I can do my AoE stuff outside if I enjoy it. And my druid could really play any role, but is best suited as a healer, or an off-tank. And that sort of niche that each character has to fill is something that drew me to Classic. And I always loved the Paladin class because, from a fantasy perspective, I always liked wearing plate, and I liked having the ability to heal. Not so that I could be a holy warrior, but something just fit that niche for me, of being someone that was good, inside and out. Anyways, that's a bit about my history playing World of Warcraft, so if you want to let me know what your history's been, I know I would love to hear it. So thank you for your time watching. Please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Light be with you all. Take care, and thanks again.